All right, I'm just going to talk a little bit about summation notation, all right, which is you're dealing with the sigma. Stop getting off the select students. Thank you. All right, so this is the sigma, all right? That symbol is a sigma, which deals with summation notation. Now, what I want you to understand, all right, is what it's actually asking you to do. So right now, this number 3 represents there's going to be 3 sums, all right? You're going to be adding 3 numbers together. All right, so if I were to plug in, starting with the number 1, if I plug in a 1, all right, 1 minus 1 is 0. If I plug in a 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. If I plug in a 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. If I add these together, what is 0 plus 1 plus 2? Well, that's a total of 3. So my answer is going to be 3. But I want to make sure you guys know how to type it into your calculator. All right, so all you got to do is go to your calculator. I'll clear this all out. You're going to hit alpha window number 2. Put an X instead of an N. I'm going to start with 1 because it asked me to start with a 1. Then over here, I'm going to type in 3. There's 3 terms in the series. And here I'm going to type in X minus 1. And when I do that and I press enter, I get 3. So what is this doing? It's doing what I did by hand. Well, why wouldn't we just do it by hand? We wouldn't do it by hand if I put like 100 in, I put 100 up there. That would take a long time. So this helps you when you're dealing with really, really, really large sequences. All right, we're trying to find the sum of that whole sequence. That's called a series. So right now, that's all I'm going to do is type in the number 3. All right. Take a look at the next one. Right here it has a y, but I'm still going to use x in my calculator. See that it says 1 minus y, there's a 2. This makes it very, very easy. I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to grab it. I'll change this right here to, instead of x minus 1, I'll put 1 minus x. Instead of a 3, I'm just going to put a 2. Press enter, and it looks like the answer is going to be negative 1. All right, so when I type this in, I'm going to write right here, I'm going to put a negative 1. All right, this is just an intro. I just want to make sure you guys get comfortable typing it in. This is basically giving you a free 100 in the gradebook. All right, so alpha window, enter. Oh, my bad. Alpha window number 2, x, 0. Just go back to your problem. It says x plus 5, and I'm at a 2. So I go over here. So there's only going to be 2 terms. All right, 2 of them. And it was x plus 5. So just to get comfortable, that's going to be 18. Okay? So we're starting with zeros. You plug in a 0, then you plug in a 1, then you plug in a 2. So what would this be like if we had to do it by hand? We plug in a 0, we plug in a 1, we plug in a 2. When I plug in a 0, it's 5. When I plug in a 1, it's a 6. When I plug in a 2, it's a 7. Well, what is 5 plus 6 plus 7? That gets us to an 18. So this was the answer when I plug in a 0. This is the answer when I plug in a 1. This was the answer when I plug in a 2. When I'm saying plug it in, you're plugging in for x. But that's what this summation notation, that's what this sigma does for you when you're typing things in. All right, so that's the easy one. Now what we need to do is go to a little bit more difficult one. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at these answers. Finite means there is a beginning and there is an end. So when you're doing these, it's going to be important that you are paying very close attention of where you put the parentheses and where you put the power. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type that carefully in to my calculator. Alpha window number 2, put x, 0, 99. So now I got to go back and I start my very first term as a 2. Then I open up a parentheses, I put a 3. I close the parentheses, I raise it to the power of x. So make sure when you're typing it in that you take your time and do it very precisely and accurately. And that gives me 5.15 times 10 to the power of 47. So I'm looking for the answer that says 5.15 times 10 to the power of 47. That's what this E47 means. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and do that one again. All right, here we go. See, we hope they get a harder one. Ah, perfect. Finally, we get a hard one. Excellent. So what we're going to do right now is I want you guys to write the summation notation. So write the summation notation. All right. So right now, in your journal, you're working on the first 45 terms. This is the pattern, and I want you to start with the summation notation. All right. When you're doing this, I'm going to put x equals 1. I'm going to put 45 up here. All right. And I'm going to put the very first term times the common ratio to the power of x minus 1. So this is what I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to be plugging a couple of things in, and then we're going to find the answer. So our very first term is this guy right here. That's our, I'm going to call that's the very first term. So here we go. My very first term is negative 0.5. So x equals 1, put a 45 right there. Now, to find the r value, you have to take one term and divide it by the previous term. So I'm going to take 1.5, and I'm going to divide it by negative 0.5. All right, so that's what I got to do. I'm taking 1.5 and dividing it by negative 0.5. So here we go. Cut that out. 1.5 divided by negative 0.5, and I get negative 3. All right? So what does that mean? That means our r value is negative 3. So could you please, this is super important, put that negative 3 in parentheses, then close it, then raise it to the power of x minus 1. This is what I'm going to type in to the calculator to help me get my answer. Just remember, what is that term? That's your first term. What does that negative 3 represent? That's your r value. And now I'm going to carefully type it in to the calculator. So here we go. Alpha window number 2, x. Start with the first term. We have a total of 45 terms. Our very first term was negative 0.5. I'm opening up a parentheses, typing in a negative 3, closing it, raising it to the power. Now, I don't know if it'll keep it up there. So if it doesn't keep it up there, I got to do another parentheses. I'm going to see if it works. X minus 1. So I hope that it looks like it stayed up there, so that's good. I'm going to press enter. So the answer that I'm going to look for is negative 3.69 times 10 to the power of 20. That's the answer that I'm searching for. Okay? And I can see it right there. Answer choice C. Okay. All right, so this one is a little bit tricky, but it's not too bad. But you guys need to see what's happening. This is my first term. This is my second term. This is my third term. This is my fourth term. Now check this out. If this is my first term, that's my first term. And this is my second, third, and fourth. What do you notice with what's happening to the power? It's like 1 less than it. So how many terms would I have out here? I'd have a total of what? 30. You see how this is like, that's to the power of 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 29. So that's going to be that's our 30th term. So our n value is actually 30. Or I'm going to put an x for my summation. So here's what we're going to do. The summation of all of these. All right, it's not a very good sigma. But I'm going to put n equals 1. We have a total of 30 terms. My very first term is the number 1. If I take negative 3 and divide it by 1, that's negative 3. That's our rate. That's our common ratio that's being multiplied over and over and over again. So I'm going to put parentheses, -3, close parentheses, to the power of n minus 1. This is what I'm going to type in to my calculator to get my answer. So if you're wondering, how does he figure out the common ratio? Well, here you take this number and you divide it by the previous term or the previous number. So in the calculator, I'm going to use x instead of n, but that's all you got to do. So right here, I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to hit alpha window number 2. I'll put an x. I'll put a 1. We know there's 30 terms. If you're wondering, how did he get 30? Because if you start with 1, 2, 3, 4, you look how this power is 1 less than that. So if that's a 29, that has to be a 30. Over here, our first term was the number 1. Our common ratio was -3. And we raised that to the power of x minus 1. That's how you use the summation notation. You've got to know how to use it correctly, otherwise you will get incorrect answers. That's going to make -5.15 times 10 to the power of 13. That's what I'm looking for. That's the answer that I'm going to be searching for, okay? Which is right there. All right? That's all you guys have to do. All right? I'm going to do a couple of more, and hopefully you'll understand what it's saying. So I'm going to set it up. Here's your summation notation. It's telling me there is a total of what? 75 terms. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to put x equals 1. Up here I'm going to put a 75. The very first term is -1/3. They've told me what the common ratio is. The common ratio is a -3. I don't know why they keep making it a -3, but that's what they're saying. And I put x minus 1. I type that guy in, and that gives me my answer. I'm doing multiple problems to show you guys how to come up with the numbers you need to put into your summation notation. So alpha window number 2, x, starting with the first term, ending with the 75th term. Our very first term, I believe, was -1/3, so I type in -1 divided by 3. Then I open up a parentheses, plug in a -3, close it, raise it to the power of x minus 1, and then I press enter. And I get -5.07. -5.07 times 10 to the power of 34. And that's how easy it is, guys. All right? Oh, it looks like they said 5.06, but I'll still choose it. And then, of course, you get ones like this. All you got to do is just literally type it in exactly as it appears in the calculator, and you'll get the answer. So that's about it. Hope this was helpful. Have a good day.